carbon to low carbon. So those issues are important, and the emphasis around effectiveness of running ESCOM and ESCOM being able to play its role within the development of our country. So I will not go into detail, but again, the issue around, and the emphasis around just transition is that it must be at the pace and at the cost that the economy can afford. That's part of the discussion, but understanding that we have communities and workers that must be protected and reskilled. So this is also reaffirmation of the work that has been done. Of our IRP and the need for it to be updated, but also looking at energy security within the oil and gas space where exploration needs to continue. That's some of the issues that are coming through, and also saying that we should be able to leverage on our relationships in BRICS to be able to benefit out of this work that we need to go. On green economy, there's an understanding that this is one of the areas that can assist us to grow the economy, but also to create job infrastructure that is needed around incentives, and also being able not to lose out in terms of the global market that is needed. So incentives that must be expended for EVs, but also ensuring that we can be able to continue with our manufacturing capacity as a country. On macroeconomic policy, there was an issue or a debate around whether the current fiscal policies are assisting us or not, and also where they just believe that we continue on a constraint in terms of agreed upon here, or what the Commission will be recommending, and what has been the debate, is that government must continue to utilize the fiscal policy to intensify the fight against poverty, inequality, and also hunger. So those are some of the issues, and utilize it as a tool to spend money in areas where it can grow the economy. On monetary policy, there will be continuing on a re-emphasis of the role of the Reserve Bank, and reaffirming. I must say here, the discussion was also incorporated with experiences from delegates who were talking about the impact of food prices and cost of living, and therefore reflection to say, is there a role for the Reserve Bank to play in this area? And I must emphasize here on the Reserve Bank, and because sometimes we get confusion, that maybe we should amend the Constitution. The issue of ownership has nothing to do with the Constitution. The Constitution, if we are to amend, it will deal with the mandate, what we call the shareholders. And therefore the prices, because if we are to tamper with that and not do it in the current context where you'll be able to give them the value in terms of price, as they call it out. Minister Godong or Comrade Enoch would have explained this during a briefing in the morning, one of the morning briefings that he done. Okay, on the financial test to be done, that is going, but more around a need to deal with available resources or capital for small businesses, for bias towards as well, ensuring that there is access to capital, particularly for SMMEs, women, youth-owned enterprises, and also military veterans. There's been a substantive support as social, but more around empowerment. So you'd find as well infusion of women, youth, but also with military veterans included, together with people with disability. So the State Bank issue, we reaffirm, but also there's an issue around the fintech startup sector by providing new businesses with access to capital. So we do believe that the whole financial sector issues of women businesses, we reaffirmed as the Economic Commission, because previously there's been issues around social grant that as the ETC we are not supportive. So in this discussion we did elaborate that we support the issues of social grant, especially basic income grant, and also that it should be, and also to be able to expand work opportunities as well of those who are in the package. So we thought that while it's in the social transformation, quite a lot of questions have been coming to us whether we support what the social transformation is saying, and we needed to reaffirm this because there's been extensive work that was done by both the committees in terms of the NEC. And then there's emphasis of, there isn't much, we are just re-emphasizing, and I'll come to the areas where we, especially on township and rural economies, just to reflect on what we are emphasizing. But what we have pronounced on the policy conference, there isn't anything that is changing there. We re-emphasizing that work. The skills as well, we are reflecting while we note that there is a committee that deals with skills. One of the areas that can be able to create jobs for us and also assist us in growing opportunities for young people. And therefore, while we're noting that automation might create job losses, but we think that alternative training and capacitation for young people and people who are working will assist us to be able to grow the economy and get people to work, security for the economy. So as the Commission, we felt that there is a need for strong emphasis that we must be able, from the safety and security point of view, secure the economy, dealing with issues such as construction mafias, dealing with issue of damages to infrastructure is critical, and therefore we felt that it needed to be flagged while they're dealing with it. Is and transformation and preferential procurement. The issue here is also emphasis of the preferential procurement laws that will assist us as a tool to be able to transform our economy. And here again, we're saying preferential procurement must consistently now, we are including military veterans, because especially war veterans, we believe that we are the only country that does not look after the war veterans very well, and now we're bringing that infusion into our economic policy. The other issue around less opposition against BEE. We believe that the opposition out of BEE, it's more around, or transformation, it's more around the frustration by capital of those who invest because of the inefficiencies. But also here we are introducing the issue that there must be, in an expanded manner, the workers' opportunity. Here we pay a special attention to retail sector, and here specifically it's around township and rural economies. We believe that big retail have displaced small businesses in our townships and also in rural areas where previously you would have seen family businesses thriving. Regulations must be in place to protect local economies and also township and rural economies, so that we do not have more migration of people looking for opportunities in urban areas. On social compacting, we are emphasizing the need. You would have noted that with this in policy conference, we spoke about it. The addition here has its purpose, and it's able to assist us in ensuring that there is social compacting. So that's what we are, new thing that is there. On trade and industry, I think we are reaffirming nothing new there from previously in terms of the policy conference, manufacturing industry, protection, but also ensuring that localization. The discussion has been around digital economy to be able to assist us to grow. So access, and this will be expanded by Comrade Komboso as they deal with their area, but here we are emphasizing the opportunities that are given by digital economy. On state-owned entities, we are here, I think the new thing that is more emphasis is the line needs to move into the line departments is a recommendation. The new area as well, more emphasis around logistics. Here on logistics is that the logistics, we see it as area that will impact negatively on the economy if we do not pay attention. What happens in Transnet, the specific here, challenges of operational and financial experiences, but to improve significant inefficiencies that currently exist in our ports and also the work. Another area that is coming here is around aviation sector reforms, that we needed to see an opportunity presented by the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, particularly for being able to export utilizing aviation sector. So there's that work and linking that with the transport. I think, Comrade Pule, that's it, African Free Trade, it's more generic, it's based on what we have already raised previously in the policy conference. Thanks.
No, thanks, members of the, thanks comrade, to comrades of the Commission. Just explaining myself that the reason why we started with ETC is because most of the topical issues that you always bring about come out of this Commission. And some of you have said that you want to start with them because you are rushing to go and file. Okay, we can start with Pule, go to the next row. Keifas, yeah. Oh, Tshegofatso Tax FM. So we discovered Tshegofatso. So she's from Tax FM. Tekis FM, I want members of the, can the media relations team be here and assist? Because
as mentioned, I'm Tshegofatso Makola from Tax FM. Ma'am, you mentioned something about land reform, topic of non-racialism. So my question then is, with the ANC's perception of non-racialism, how does this play into issues like land reform?
Okay. Just a week ago, the Minister of Energy, Gwede Mantashe, was in Emalahleni, and the community rejected the whole policy framework around energy transitioning, saying that it's too early, they are not skilled, and they don't understand. I wanted to know, is there some sort of work around manufacturing electrical vehicles? Do you think the issue of load shedding has to be eradicated and dealt with first before we can move into that sector? And thirdly, investors are also seemingly worried and concerned around the issue of business forums, where largely extortion happens here, and it's threatening the economy's growth as well. Thanks.
My name is Tando Maeko from the Business Day. So the minister said that the ANC ETC discussed moving state-owned entities in line with their line departments. Does that mean we can possibly perhaps a Transnet to from DPE to Transport Department? Also, were there any discussions about the SOE holding company that the government has been touting for a while now? And then another question is, a running theme in the Zondo Commission was that the ANC used state-owned entities party itself. Were there any discussions on how to stop this? And if so, please explain.
Kaifas Khosana from the Sunday Times. My first question is on the Reserve Bank. What was the mood of most of the participants on this one, of where this money is going to come from? My second question is also on the basic income grant. The delegates push for a wealth tax to fund the basic income grant. If not, were there any discussions around how it's going? Was that an indication of which SOEs should move to line departments? Is it just ESCOM, or should it be all other SOEs? And if they do, what happens to the Department of Public Enterprises? Thanks.
Hi, I'm Dimakatso Leshoro from Economic Growth. Secondly, the JET IP, Just Energy Transition Investment Plan, was that discussed at all, and what was the attitude of the delegates towards that? You spoke about using fiscal policy to address poverty. Can you just expand on that? What does that mean? Are you...
Thank you so much. My name is Govan Whittles from Newsroom Africa, Channel 405. The finance minister's on record saying that the social relief 350 grant is going to form the basis for the introduction of a basic income grant, and that the 350 grant will not be taken away, that it's the allocation of grant funding and concessional loans in the Just Transition deal is equal to what the coal industry produces in a year. And the environmental minister says that they're hoping for a financing structure that is more grants and less concessional loans. Integrated resource plan needs to be updated. What about it needs to be updated? When you say that you need oil and gas exploration, does the ANC government support fracking for shale gas? When you say you want to leverage the BRICS relationship for this, what do you mean by that? You mean for oil and gas exploration? Thank you.
Done with all the questions?
No.
Because we're not going to have another round of questions. So let's just take the questions. Then Comrade Mamuluku can then deal with those.
Siyabonga Sithole from the Star. I just want to find out if there was any discussion about the arts-based and...
Thank you. My name is Mawande from the Sunday
Sorry,
Times.
before Sam, did you indicate your... What?
Siyabonga Sithole from the Star.
the just transition, fossil fuel, renewables. Member Mluko, just how emphatic were discussions around those that believe that, for instance, these countries that are sponsoring our transitioning from...
Mawande, sorry, just brief. So she doesn't want to miss because all the questions are important. So she was just asking that if you can proceed.
So as I was saying, on the debate on just transitioning from fossil fuels to renewables, how emphatic were the proponents of the dip away from coal are actually the ones who are taking our coal there in Mpumalanga. And I mean, for instance, a case in point being Germany, where we saw them shutting down a solar farm and turning it into a coal-fired power station. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. My name is Kokeli. Minister, you mentioned the issue of food prices and general inflation. What should be done about it? Any ideas what do you guys want done about it? Any specifics, please? But also, having one around a policy, is that perhaps a reason for that you're not staying at the high level, political level, around the things you want? What does it mean about that, and also how government implements ANC policy? Thanks.
Okay.
Bit about Puti Musumani from Inside Politics.
Just say your name, media outlet.
Puti Musumani, Inside Politics, slowly. Is the ANC or are members not worried about government's uncontrollable appetite to going to be in trouble? Thank you.
Okay, those are all the questions.
Thank you very much. Let me start with the issue raised by Tshofatso. Yes, the ANC stands for non-racialism. Be on the same footing, we must address the past imbalances. We continue to see majority of the population, majority of South Africans having no access to land, no access to economic opportunities. 5% of the wealth in the country majority of the wealth in the country remains in the 5% of the population. So while we believe in the non-racial, the fact that we talk transformation and access, Pule raised the issue of just transition and the work that has been done. The commission that has been appointed by the president released a framework for just transition. Part of the issues that they had done interviews and community engagements. As you are correctly saying, Minister Mandasha and some of the ministers, including Minister Chrissy, have been engaging in communities. The message that we get from communities is that the pace outpaces the level where we are skilling and end up with people not being able to find a living. So that's why we talk about the pace and the scale that we are doing. So as we do this repurposing of the plants in the areas, especially when we look at the submission, for example, from Mpumalanga province, they've made a very substantive input around the issues of their concerns as a province, their communities. As you know, this is a province that is more in transition, but they are saying the pace we are moving in shouldn't be too fast, that it leaves the workers and the population behind. On the issue of electrical vehicle, yes, we acknowledge the challenges of electricity currently, but we are saying, let's prepare ourselves, because remember, South Africa is currently one of the, we export vehicles, and quite a number of countries are very sensitive and already putting barriers to say by 2030 they will not be able to. It's part of us starting to prepare in terms of policy, in terms of incentive to encourage manufacturing and repurposing of this. And that's why we're talking about even building of infrastructure. Even if you are to move, you're going to have the charging points across the country, and therefore you need to start preparing and financing those infrastructure. That work has to start now while we're sorting out the electricity, so that by the time we're done with the electricity and all those, we're not left out. The issue of investors worried about business forum, not only investors, ourselves are worried. Our call is for more in the security cluster to assist us, or security area to assist in protecting the economy. So that concern is there, it's genuine, it's legitimate. We are accepting it as the ETC, and we are flagging it to say we have to protect the issues around. And I know Minister Cele, in his capacity as Minister of Police, engages me in my capacity as Minister of Human Settlements, that sometimes us as those who are doing this are actually incentivizing this business forum, all of us, to find lasting solution, because it is worrying us. So there is work that is underway, some of the options that are being looked at currently so that we can rebuild that confidence. Tando asked about the state-owned entities. This is a broad mandate, it's not specific to anyone. It says that for efficiency and for ease of reference, this decision and discussions have happened previously. The delegates were saying, can we put it more clearer that we want to see state-owned of what the Zondo Commission says about state-owned entities. We didn't discuss it, but you'd remember that the ANC has released a report in terms of state-owned entities and also how we deal with the Zondo Commission, and a response that the President has released a report as well. So those issues are covered. They were not discussed in the Commission. Kefas is asking about, I didn't know. The first one was about the mood. I'm not so sure what was the mood about. Okay. Look, as I said, we reaffirmed the previous discussions, one on the ownership and also on the mandate. And that's why it's linked to that question of the food and prices. To say, are we able to utilize the Reserve Bank to change in terms of addressing what we see? For example, somebody would say, the interest rate goes higher and therefore we are burdened as consumers. We lose the houses, we lose our jobs, we lose, sorry, not jobs, we lose cars, but also SMMEs, we must go and look at the mandate. So that was re-emphasized, to say, look at the mandate of the Reserve Bank. Is it able to assist us? Not, and there was almost a balanced discussion there to say, we are not saying that you must be reckless to go and print money, but we are saying do what is necessary to protect consumers, but also protect the economy. We don't want to see high inflation that are out of control. We've seen what happens with Sri Lankas and others, but also we are saying, can you understand, find a balance in addressing Commission. On the basic of the NC, on the basic income grant, the issue here, delegates were saying, while we saw the importance of the 350 in terms of alleviating poverty, making sure that people had food on their table. That can't be disputed. And therefore, it forms a basis to say there is a need for a basic income grant. What must be finalized is how much it is, because government will have to find mechanisms to fund that. Whether that comes with a wealth tax or anything, but conference is saying, delegates are saying, we acknowledge this, how it has assisted families to have, not to be living below poverty lines, and that has been acknowledged. I think I've answered, Kefas, the issue of the review of the SOEs as well, that they must move. It's generic. There was no specific mention to say this one, this one, this one, but it was that we acknowledge. Dimakato asked about the decision of the Reserve Bank. I've touched on this. And then on the just energy transition, I think maybe let me come to it more. Here, what conference and delegates are acknowledging is that we can't be oblivious to the fact that climate change is here and is affecting us. We've seen the impact of the floods and all those things. But yes, I think somebody was asking about it, which is later, do the just transition in a manner that it does not compromise our development, but also it does not compromise lives and livelihoods of those that would be affected. So there is an acknowledgement and a call for a balanced approach. And then maybe linking this to a question around the finance deal. There was an emphasis that we must make sure that we do not overburden the state with debts and conditional grants that are unreasonable. And maybe to link this, somebody was saying, we have already agreed that issues around government has raised concerns that if the conditions are not conducive, we will not agree to them. So there are negotiations, there's work that is being done. Our understanding from the ANC that work is being done in government to ensure that the conditions of the financing of just energy transition are not that of compromising the sovereignty of the country, but also not overburdening the future generation. And this, if you go and talk to the colleagues in Treasury, they will tell you a large portion of our borrowing is on local economy, our banks. So we're not borrowing a lot. It's not, even if I'm not mistaken, Comrade Enoch and Comrade David Mason can clarify this in detail. I think it's almost around 10% that we borrow outside. So it could be that we're seeing once in a while an announcement that we've taken this money. And by the way, the conditions currently has been very favorable in the manner that we have taken. So there isn't truth, it's in terms of our local economy, our local banks. The question around what does it mean to update the IRP? You would note that as the demand of energy increases, there is a need to review the IRP to say what do we need, how, and all that, at what. Ours remains a policy of a mixed energy tool. So we do not discuss. We can talk about updating the IRP and we remove coal, because some of our plants still have more years to come. They would not close today. They will have 10 years, 20 years. We just built Medupi and Kusile, so they will still run while we are infusing the technologies to reduce carbon emissions out of those plants. It's part of the work that we'll do. We have a nuclear plant that we have extended its lifespan. It continues in that way. So it's not changing. The updating is to say which technology will give us which attention for us to learn from each other, to get benefits. So there is benefit of being part of BRICS through even the BRICS Bank. So we'll explore the experiences of our BRICS partners in terms of skills and in terms of the work. Are we able to get some of the things cheaper from them? Are we able to get some of the work that we need to do in the energy space? Because this is where we clearly have a challenge. It's those that the delegates were saying. Siabonga, we didn't deal with the issue of the creative industry. I'll be lying if I say the issue of the debate around coal and in relation to Europe. Obviously, as I said, that has been responded around the jet thing. Sam, I don't know if I answered your questions. Yes, I did. Okay, thank you very much. So those were the questions, Comrade Pule. Thank you very much, so that we don't take much time from everybody, because we do have other comrades that are going to. We'll continue offline with some of the colleagues if they want to engage.
No, thanks. I know Tando wants to pick up some more, but because she's from Business Day, before you file, you can talk to Mamuluk. We can now move and go with the program. We'll now invite Comrade David Makura to do strategy. A new one should come. She has gone to vote. Where's she? Comrade Fasia here. She's voting. Oh, okay. No, that's fine. Chair. Okay, you can see strategy and tactics.
Thank you very much to you, Comrade Pule. I will just do a very high-level overview of what, taking into account the fact that you guys also are tired, like us. The first thing I would like to say is that this 55th National Conference looked at the National Policy Conference discussions and conclusions on strategy and tactics. And just to remind you that as well as some significant macro-social and political changes in South Africa. And all those taken together, the global new developments, as well as the changes in our own country, in many respects also in the continent, those proceeded also from looking at the report, the political report presented to conference by the president, the organizational report, but there was also a presentation to plenary on a document developed by the issues that have strategic implications in that document. So it was important to make reference to that. So the first thing I would like to say is that as a result of things I am going to say, these developments, occasions, and these developments at home, as a result of those, the conclusion of the different commissions. So I'm presenting a consolidated report of all the commissions on strategy and tactics. The difference between the previous report on the economy is that it comes from one commission put in one. We have had 16 commissions, consolidated report of all those commissions. What did they say on strategy and tactics? So firstly, the commissions looked at the global balance of forces, amongst which major developments are the global crisis of neoliberalism. Strategy and tactics is about theorizing the revolution. It's about analyzing that and arriving at what action to take, informed by our strategic goal. The strategic goal of the ANC, to remind you, is to build a non-racial, non-sexist, united, democratic, and prosperous society, otherwise referred to as a national democratic society. And the rise of China is a major development. It's a very significant development in the world. It's not only the rise of China, but some of the developing countries like India are playing an increasingly important role, and some of the BRICS countries in this. So as a result of these shifts that are happening, takes positions when our government interacts in global forums, in multilateral forums, informed firstly by what we stand for, and in what we stand for, what is in the best interest of South Africa. The second development that the commissions looked at is about the ongoing war in Ukraine, and that it has got geopolitical consequences on the economy, the global economy, but on the nature of that conflict also has an impact on peace in the world. The peace dividend is increasingly disappearing, getting shattered. It also undermines the sustainable development goals. The impact of human security is in tatters if you look at these conflicts. But also that war draws in major countries into that conflict. It's not just, so it's not correct to characterize it as the war between Russia and Ukraine. So NATO as a military alliance, so major countries in the world are involved in that war. That's why it has got geopolitical, must be to think about what it really means for peace and sustainable development. Briefly, also COVID-19, this is something that many of you know, the discussions have been there. The pandemic has huge implications. The climate crisis requires a strategic global response, international solidarity. So, and the issues of major changes brought about by technology, particularly the fourth industrial revolution. So that's one of the digital economy, the technological developments. What are the implications of that on the world we seek to build and the way we organize society? So that's something that the Commission said it's important for the ANC. This question of the gender agenda, it's a very critical issue, as well as the issues affecting young people. So if you're talking about all these issues have implications, particularly on women and youth. We're still in the global south, so that understand that women and youth everywhere in the world are at the receiving end. And it's worse if these are black women and black and African youth, that they are more affected. If it's women and youth in the global change, so the impact of all the pandemics, the impact of those on where you are located in the world is not the same. The African continent, the Commission's also reviewed developments in the African continent. One of the big issues that the Commission's looked at, because there's a resurgence of conflicts in the different regions of our continents. Some of this conflict is arising out of coups, military coups, the resurgence of the bad hand of the military in wanting to run the affairs of countries. There is a period we were making advances on the issues of peace in our continent, but we are moving in reverse. We are in some areas. In East Africa, in the Great Lakes, in some of the countries the commissions looked at, but a very positive development is on the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, well articulated by commissions, and the potential it brings for industrialization, economic integration, and global issues, as well as the issues in our continent, and I'll come back to the domestic balance of forces. The Commission said that leadership is very, very important. We need coherent leadership globally. We need coherent leadership and decisive action in our continent, more coherent and resolute action in the global institutions, from the United Nations and all other multilateral institutions. In the absence of that, there will be all these multiple challenges as well as aspects of crisis will impact severely on humanity. The conclusions across the board, the conclusions of the commissions are that in the preface to the strategy and tactics that was presented to conference, we need to rework that and bring that into the preface. Some of these issues, how do we interact with them? How do we strengthen our response? So on the domestic issues, you would be interested a great deal in this. South Africa, the commissions moved from the premise that in 2024, South Africa will mark a very critical, is so important for our country, not only because we have an election, but 2024 is important to look back and say, what kind of South Africa have we built over 3 decades? We look back to 1994. It needs to do certain things. So from next year, so the first takeaway for you is that the ANC in 2023, so yes, in January we will conclude the deliberations of this conference, and what I'm saying from the commissions will be subjected to conference. That the ANC needs to convene a series of strategy engagements, strategy sessions, including a strategy convention, not just of the ANC, but in that program.